Perfectionism. It almost sounds like a compliment. Oh, I'm just a perfectionist. As if it's a quirky personality trait that makes you thorough and detail-oriented. But it's more complicated than that, of course. And often it's quietly dangerous.
Today we're going to talk about what perfectionism actually is, including the 3 types that psychologists have identified. And stay with us until the end because we're going to give you one question that takes about 5 minutes and it helps you break the loop when you keep criticizing yourself. Oh, and by the way, if you like this type of content, could we ask you to like and subscribe on your platform of choice and just write in the comments your questions or reflections. We promise to read and answer every one of them.
So, what is perfectionism? A lot of people will feel proud about it. That's just me. I have high standards. I want to improve. I want to give it my best. But actually, perfectionism is a slightly different.
Yeah, it's different because underneath it's more like I'm not allowed to make mistakes. If it's not perfect, it doesn't count. If I choose wrong, I'll regret it forever and ever. It's actually about being afraid of being wrong.
Actually, two psychologists, Hewitt and Flett, have been studying this for decades. I'll put it in show notes, and you can follow this research. And they have described like 3 types of perfectionism. The first one is actually self-oriented perfectionism, where you actually set your impossibly high standards for yourself.
And the second one is the other-oriented perfectionism. There's less talked about this one. It's where you place those same unrealistic standards on the people around you, your child, your partner, your students. You become critical, controlling, hard to please, and of course it damages relationships, often without the person realizing.
And the third one, and research actually flags this as the most damaging one, is the socially prescribed perfectionism. The belief that other people hold you to an impossible standard, that the world, your family, your peers, your coach are all watching and waiting for you to just fall flat on your face. And these 3 types show up in the studio actually every week, because the dancer who can't stop tweaking their work, the parent who keeps commenting on every class, and there's also the child who believes that everyone else is measuring them against a standard that she'll probably never reach.
So is perfectionism on the rise? Over the past 30 years, the researchers have been tracking perfectionism across tens of thousands of young people. And their conclusion is not just common, it's climbing. And it's tightly linked with depression, eating disorders, thoughts of suicide, relationship problems, and chronic procrastination.
Yeah, and all 3 have risen very sharply, around this time, especially because that there's a sense that everyone wants to, expects me to be perfect. And that pattern, it keeps, showing up again and again in teenagers and young adults. And researchers go so far as to say that we shouldn't treat perfectionism as it's not a personality trait anymore, but it's actually a serious public health issue.
Yeah, and we see this in the studios as well. I remember one of our 16-year-old dancers, she told us that she feels the pressure to be perfect all the time and from every
I
direction.
remember her.
It's like she comes back from the recreational sports class, the gym. She has a red face, she's sweaty, her hair is drenched. And she said that at any moment someone could snap a picture of her and post it online. So she feels she has to be in control of how she looks at every single moment, even walking out of a gym class. And that tells you everything about where we are right now.
Yeah, and of course, social media has this pressure to be perfect, and that's the world these kids are growing up in, actually. And it's actually a little bit like a pressure cooker, because you have this constant striving to have the perfect life, the perfect holiday, and the perfect hair, the perfect dance steps. Everything has to be curated, and everything has to be filtered. And your child is scrolling through this, every day, several hours, measuring themselves against something that isn't even real. So for young dancers already working in an environment built around correction and comparison, that pressure from the outside adds an extra layer of pressure.
Yeah, and we want to share you a student case from a child. So she's 12 years old. We call her Hannah, a very talented ballerina, one of those ballerinas you notice immediately in the room. And she was quite hard on herself. It was difficult to watch.
What did you notice about her?
So she would come in the studio ready to get to action. And she looked beautiful. Her hair was done, a nice outfit. And she said, my hair doesn't look good. My bun is not perfect. And so she would redo her hair, but she was still not happy. And she would ask her mom, can you do my bun? The mom tried her best. Also, that wasn't enough.
The mom got quite a load.
She kept fussing about it. But she looked perfectly fine.
Yeah. And I also noticed that when I was taking a picture, for most of the pictures, it's just a standard audition shot. But there was a couple of pictures where I asked it like, just like smile gently. And she immediately she shook her head and she says, no, I can't. So she would adjust the position. We will take the shot. She'll glance at the screen and immediately dismisses. And she would say, could you redo that? Again, over and over again for the simplest of things.
Yeah, in the coaching also, we noticed that she would go over a combination over and over, not really to improve, but she said it never felt right enough to move on. And also the corrections from the teachers, from us, are meant as a guidance, but she saw it as a verdict.
Yeah.
Even the compliments, it was hard for her to receive the compliments. She would do a beautiful pirouette, and I would say, that was a nice turn. And she would like shake her head and say, no, not really.
Yeah. And I think this kind of like level of self-demand isn't really sustainable. And unfortunately, her pre-professional part ended much earlier than any of the teachers would have predicted. And, she just quit. She didn't, we don't, of course, know all the details, but observing from a distance, it looked quite certain that expectations weren't met. And she put an end to her dance career.
Perfectionism, it runs on a negative filter. When 10 things go well, one goes wrong, and the brain decides the whole day was a failure. Is that
Guilty.
is that all or nothing? No room for good enough, no room for progress. It's just perfect
Yeah.
or a failure.
And this is like black and white kind of form of thinking. Actually, that if you would invest more time in thinking about it, so you would actually make better decisions. You will, if you analyze it, if you make your lists, your checklists, and you consult many people on the way, and it's actually, instead of getting clearer, the opposite is true, because you actually get more stuck. Psychologists call this analysis paralysis, where people with perfectionist traits, they delay or they procrastinate the decisions longer because they just cannot tolerate picking something that could be wrong. That feels you're responsible about it. I mean, you're smart about it, but actually it just saps your energy and it costs you so many opportunities because you just can't, which you can't get back because you just delay the decision making.
And I believe there is no perfect decision. Every choice comes with incomplete information, and every path you take has trade-offs. What looks right today might look different in a year.
Yeah.
And your brain doesn't help it either. We all have the tendency to collect the evidence for what we already believe, and we just ignore the rest. And that's confirmation bias. You've already half decided, and then you go looking for information that proves you are right.
Right.
The research that contradicts you, you just scroll past it. And the review that doesn't match your gut feeling, you just dismiss it. So all that extra thinking isn't making you more objective. It's just making you more convinced of a decision you haven't examined properly.
Yeah. One thing about perfectionism is that you actually hate uncertainty. So you want to have a certain kind of like guarantee. If I do something, for sure it's going to work. Right? It's for sure we're going to get a guaranteed result. But uncertainty is like built into everything worth doing. So every audition, every choreography, even parenting decisions.
It's balancing. We had a discussion with some parents just last Sunday about how strict should I be with my child. And it's a balance because you don't know how it will end, and nobody does. When you learn to sit with that rather than fight it, something will shift. And you get better at adjusting as things will unfold. And you should have a bias towards action.
Yeah. Like as entrepreneurs, we've learned that we could spend actually months building on a particular project only to find out no one cares about it. So now we have taken the opposite path, which is looking for a certain demand for a particular project before we decide to build on it.
And like thinking and overthinking about it, many parents come to us with the question, should my child go to professional school, or should I just keep dance as an extracurricular activity? And that's really uncertain. But you can test it. You can go to the summer intensive of that school, see if your child likes it there, see if that's the life they want. It's just a small test, and it often gives more truth than just months of deliberation.
Yeah, a colleague of ours, she's a dance teacher and pedagogue. She shared that you might actually have the opposite thing, which is the fear of success. Because logically speaking, fear of failure would be, would be the more prominent one. It would do it perfectly, and no one could criticize you. That actually makes sense, the logic. But she pointed us to something that's less obvious, which I come back to again, is that fear that what if something actually works? So it becomes that we stay in the middle somewhere. We will keep adjusting, fidgeting, doubting, and delaying the decision or action. And you never will fully fail. You're guaranteed of that. And you will also never fully arrive. So she's shared something personal. Actually, you should tell that story.
Yeah, she told me she was a ballerina in a beautiful company. And at a certain point in her career, she started deliberately underperforming. It's not because she lacked the ability, because she's amazing, but she knew that she would get noticed when she did well, and people would immediately expect more.
Right.
So she made herself smaller, and she told us it made her deeply unhappy.
Right. It's really similar to the story of a very talented 12-year-old that we had. Now, of course, she's a grown-up woman. And we had promoted her from the, the kids company into the main company, right? And she was actually with slightly older kids. Most of them were about 15 or 16. And we thought that she would be able, she could cope with it. Technically, she would like handle the pressure, and maybe she was actually better than some of the older girls. But we started noticing very soon that she was actually starting to slide backwards, backpedaling a little bit and underperforming. I think it went on for like a couple of years before she started to gain the confidence that she felt. Maybe she felt accepted in the group, or that she could really shine now. And looking back, we think it's about um, not wanting to outshine the other dancers, the more experienced dancers, and that fear of success was very real. And yeah, and sometimes I, as her coach, felt like she was being, she looked a little bit lazy, and I couldn't understand what was happening, or there was a sudden loss of interest. But underneath it, I think sometimes the fear was, what if you actually reach your goals? And yeah, it's strange, no? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a paradoxical.
I remember the mail that we received. Congratulations, you made it through the audition, you got into the school, and then you start crying, not just because of happiness, but also because of fear. I succeeded, but what's next? Yeah. Sometimes we avoid decisions because we're scared we'll regret choosing wrong. But study after study finds the opposite. We're far more haunted by the things we didn't do than the things we did and got wrong.
Right. Think about it in the dance context, right? You have regret one. I should have auditioned. I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with this. And I sat in the audience and I was watching, and I knew I could have been there myself.
As the other regret, I auditioned and I didn't get through.
Right.
So the first one stays with you longer because you're left imagining what could have happened when you auditioned because you have no data to work with. And the second gives you something real. You tried, you didn't get in, but you learned.
Yeah, and for parents, they could be doubting about like signing up their child for the next intensive. Should I let them stop the other extracurricular activity for dance? And this is like what ifs that keep stacking up. And then one question that helps before such a big decision is actually in a year's time, or maybe even further, like in 5 years' time, what would I regret more? Would I regret trying it and not succeeding, or would I regret never having tried at all?
Yeah. And every dancer we've worked with who really grew, the ones who made the leap into a higher group, the ones who got into auditions, the ones who are successful. They all have a history full of falls. They all have a history of forgotten steps and performances or competitions that didn't go the way they planned.
Right. And a reminder, a very good reminder, is that embracing perfection, it doesn't actually mean lowering your standards, right? It just means shifting your energy instead of focusing on not getting it correct and avoiding mistakes to actively saying, okay, I messed this up. I screwed it up. So what could I learn from this? And at home, that could sound like, hey, it wasn't 100% perfect, but it was good enough as a try. And let's just adjust it as we need to go along. Hold up. If this is helping, do it now. Tap the subscribe and hit the like button. It tells YouTube to push this to dancers who need it today. Drop your question in the comments and we'll answer it in a future episode. Now back to the episode. You remember watching that story about Roger Federer when he retired, and he had this, there was this commencement speech at Dartmouth University, I think. You could find this on YouTube. And so he says that over his career that he's played more than 1,500 matches, and he won, I think, almost 80% of the matches, but only 54% of the points that he had played. Now, if such a legend was winning, he was actually winning. If such a legend was actually losing every second point. But what he revealed was that he wasn't actually just focused on winning points, but he was aiming to reset. There was this kind of like pause right after a particular point that you lose. He would just, what's that?
Yeah. The sport psychologists, they talk about this. And it's one of the big differences between the best tennis players and the rest, or the best athletes and the rest. It's what happens in the 10 or 20 seconds after a point. So the top players, the top athletes, they have a tiny reset. It's a breath, it's a look, and then the last point is gone, and they don't drag it into the next rally. It's what I said to one of our dancers yesterday. Your competition didn't go amazing last Sunday, but just reset. We've learned from it, and we go on to the next one.
Yeah,
If you keep...
Yeah, we really wish for the dancers to learn this. This is, and that I didn't make it this time, but it's okay. But we'll just next time. And when we think of Hannah, the girl from the 12-year-old who came for that photo shoot, she didn't need more fiction. She just needed to say, hey, listen, this version of me is as ready as it could be. And many a time when you watch a movie or you're watching a performance, you actually want to see the struggle of that moment. If you see the courage of the dancer pushing through, and they're breathing heavy, and here, they just,
with the connection. And sometimes you have to remind yourself, this version of me is already worth being seen.
Right. So what could we do differently?
Yes. So these are things that have worked in our studio, privately, in our family. They won't map onto every situation because you know your child best. But in the dance world, just set a 20-minute timer for decisions, like costumes, like your music, like your choreography. And when the timer ends, you commit. There's no second guessing, because from experience, I know I could look for 5 days for the perfect song, but sometimes when I have my Spotify file and there's a lot of selections,
Right.
I could choose in 20 minutes if I force myself.
Right. Another thing that we do is like especially early on in the choreographies when it's not really 100% perfect, we just run it through every time. This full piece, no
Full
stopping,
run-through.
and probably there'll be a lot of gaps in there. Everyone just waits and let's continue, and there'll be mistakes, guaranteed. But we just see what happens, and we're actually we're not allowed to go back. No stopping, replaying it again.
And no, the question that we promised you in the start of the episode is really good for your inner critic. It comes from the author Byron Katie, and we found it really useful for students stuck in the loop and for ourselves. You write your thought down exactly as it sounds in your head, like, my teacher thinks I'm the weakest in the group, or everyone noticed that I missed a step. And then you ask yourself 3 questions. First, is it true? Do I actually have evidence for this? Real evidence, not a feeling. And what would I think and feel if I let this thought go? And most of the times when students write a thought down and they look at it properly, there's no real evidence. For me, after last weekend, it could be I'm not capable as a choreographer. Thought in my head. Is it true? Do I have evidence for that? Not really. So then how would I feel if I let this thought go? I would feel lighter. And that is like the exercise. It takes 5 minutes. Really go into it, but it works.
Yeah, and I think for parents also, we've talked about this earlier in other episodes also, that we need to model this aloud, and that we have to constantly tell the children that it's not perfect. It's okay. It's good enough to start with. Let's move on. Yeah, you teach them, I think, more through this one sentence than through any conversation about perfectionism. And also, I think you should use the regret test. So
We spoke about this like in a year time.
Why?
What will hurt more, trying and going not as I expected, or never trying at all? Quick note. If this resonates, our book, The Dance Advantage, goes deeper on raising creative, resilient kids. We built it with research, stories, and real-world examples you can try at home. It's available on Amazon when you need a thoughtful guide on your dance's journey. Back to the episode.
I had a conversation with the father, and you can see his little girl. She's very intelligent, and she can imagine that herself failing. And last Sunday, the girl enrolled for an improvisation round at the competition, and she did quite well. And of course, she had nerves, and the father said, like, the night before, she was regretting a decision. But after the competition, and when she had gotten through it, she was like beaming. She survived it, and she was like quite happy with it. And I was so happy for the father and the mother, because they were really struggling with this.
It's like, it's that thing that you make the decision and it feels good enough. You just act on it and then you adjust based on what you learn. So that is
What about for teachers then,
yeah, for the teacher.
who might be watching this?
Yes. So you also watch for the student who starts to pull back just as something good is happening. The story we referred to from our dance colleague. It's often not disengagement, it's the fear of what comes next. Name it gently and just keep adjusting as you go.
Yeah. It's just like,
And praise commitment, right? Raise the effort, not just the quality. It's like, I love that you chose something and you stuck with it. You went for that solo, you finished it.
yeah.
And for the teacher also, build those imperfect repetitions into class. Don't always just, some teachers would stop the music. Okay, you went wrong again. But this run, no restarting, dance the whole thing through and let them fix their mistakes.
Yeah. Of course, if your child is neurodivergent and they have some form of ADHD or autism or anxiety, this will be different for you. We would encourage you to work with a professional who understands both the dance world and your child's specific needs.
And as the closing, we want to share a very personal story about our son. He was ready for his first serious ballet competition with a solo performance. And we drove to the venue, he checked in, he got his dancer's badge, and we went to the warm-up area. And there he took one look at all the other dancers, and he decided everyone there was better than him. And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, can we just go back to the car?"
Right.
I even get emotional thinking about it.
Yeah. In the hindsight, I mean, when you think about that situation, it's quite scary and freaky at the same time, that if we had allowed him to quit at that moment, head back to the car and save him from that like tiny moment of discomfort, he probably would not be where he is today. And that was just one choice. It was akin to like throwing a little pebble into a river and changing the whole course of the river. And that's quite freaky. And then, no one has a crystal ball. No one can predict what the path will turn out. But in the theme that what we teach consistently is be directionally correct, and you don't have to have everything figured out, but just keep going through the motions.
You just have the direction in mind and you keep moving. As long as you're moving forward and then adjusting as you go,
That's good enough, huh?
that's good enough.
Yeah. And you're allowed to make good enough decisions, and give them permission to do that. You're allowed to get things wrong. You're allowed to learn as you go. And it's okay to teach that to your children. They should have that same freedom, because they're watching how you do it far more closely than listening to what you're saying.
And especially in dance, in a creative life, there's a lot of chaos. There's no fixed destination. You start from imperfection when you have your bunch of dances in front of you. You start from imperfection, you make the next honest choice, be honest about it, and let the path unfold.
Well, I think that's all that we have for you today. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you in the next one. Dream it, do it, and give it.
Bye.
Bye. Take 2.
Take 3.
This episode is about perfection. As it's a quirky personality trait that makes you thorough and
Okay, again.
not perfect at all.